Who picks up the pieces now, Piers?
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? My preferred choices would have been Guardiola and Klopp, but they're not available. There are some interesting options. You've got some interesting internal options of former Arsenal players who've not been allowed really around the scene at Arsenal, which I think has been a massive mistake. You've got Patrick Vieira, who's obviously been coaching in New York. He's being talked about. Thierry Henry, I think, would love to do it. And, would he really do a worse job than when Guardiola went to Barcelona as a young guy about Thierry's age? I don't know. I'd like us to be experimental and bold, but at the same time, there are some very capable managers like Allegri, like Simeone. We've got Atletico Madrid coming to us on Thursday. You'll see how dynamic and brilliant Simeone is. So where does this board go? I don't have the obvious answer now. My preference would always have been Klopp or Guardiola. They're not there. So we've missed the boat with some of the best options. But that doesn't mean that change actually for the sake of it, as so often, may be just the catalyst we need to drive forward. The stadium's paid for, money is pouring in, we can afford to compete for the best players in the world, and I think we need a manager, I would say a younger, dynamic, very driven manager, somebody who fits that bill. There are probably 5 or 6 people in that category that we could go for. And then we've got to all get behind them, and the board has to completely back them, and we have to see if we can now go forward from what is a very stagnant pond right now at Arsenal. The Emirates has become a place where people have been staying away. The ones that do go have been moaning a lot, and I don't blame them. I've been doing it myself.
Yeah, I think that's probably what did for him in the end, isn't it?
I lost interest recently. Couldn't even be bothered to tweet in a game. And it's like, I looked at myself and thought, wow, what's this come to? Actually, it was just we'd all got bored with the Wenger out thing. And now it's been resolved, so let's get somebody in who can drag us kicking and screaming now into a brave new world.
And what do you think will happen with Arsene Wenger now? I mean, whether he was pushed or whether he jumped, is he going to retire, do you think?
I don't know. I mean, if I was Arsene Wenger, I'd look at Alex Ferguson and I would retire. I don't know what kind of life Wenger has outside of football. I had dinner with one of the Invincibles recently, who's in well, and said that, he doesn't have a lot outside of football. He really doesn't. That's one of the sadnesses of Wenger. He's given everything to the club, and that was one of the reasons he was so reluctant to leave it, is that actually he doesn't do anything else. His idea of a wild Saturday night is watching a Swedish, Division 2 reserve game to see if he can spot a new player, and that's been a brilliant thing for him as a manager, but not a great thing for him as a person, as an individual. I don't think he has much else. So maybe, he could go and manage the French national team. He could go and be president of FIFA or something. I mean, Wenger's intelligent and experienced enough to do almost any job he likes. Is he still going to be a top choice for the Real Madrids, the Bayern Munichs, the Barcelonas? I don't think so, because I think they've looked at him in the last 10 years and thought, that guy is not the Wenger of the first 8 years at Arsenal. And they'll have made the same calculation. And they'll look at the younger, more ruthless, hungry managers, the Mourinhos, Guardiolas, Klopps, and so on, and they'll think that's where we need to be. And I think every big club feels that now. So, Wenger's nearly 70, and he's had an amazing run at Arsenal. I would like him to have a great retirement and to be lauded by the game for the incredible achievements that he's had in the game, not least in his first half at Arsenal. I fear he won't be able to let it go. But that's a decision for him. And I think the important thing for Arsenal is the club and Arsene Wenger have made the right decision finally and belatedly so that we can now regroup and move on.
This season, what actually cost him? Do you think it just caught up with him? I know the fans have been a problem now for the last 3 years. They've been staying away, and this year was the biggest, the most obvious. When you're watching on television, the fans have gone. Sanchez leaving. Mesut Ozil managed to sign a new contract, but he's lost the Ox. He's got Wilshere out of contract. I think Ramsey's coming towards the end of his contract. Do you think it's just all caught up with him this season? It's just thought, I've got to get out of here now because the club is going backwards.
I think so, and I think probably a few board members. I know of at least one that I had a chat with recently who was very keen that Wenger see the light and move on. I think the reality, Darren, is that nobody wanted to pull the trigger on him. Nobody wanted to throw the towel in for him. Ian Wright said recently a very interesting thing. It was like watching Muhammad Ali fight Larry Holmes. He just had gone on too long and was taking too many punches. Nobody watched that fight and didn't feel anything but an awful sense of despondency about what they were watching. And I think everyone who's been watching Wenger in the last couple of years who loves football and who loves Arsenal has felt the same way about it. I don't think there'll be any glee from anybody at Arsenal today. You know, I've led the Wenger out campaign perhaps on social media because I genuinely have felt he should have gone years ago, and it's better for the club that we make a change. But I don't feel gleeful. I don't feel thrilled that Wenger, has to leave on a losing note. I wish he'd gone after winning the FA Cup in 2013, for example. I think it would have been a perfect time to move on. Then we may have got a Jurgen Klopp or Guardiola. So, it's been a very messy situation for a number of years now. And I think the fact that fans began staying away in very large numbers, 10, 15,000 empty seats, I think that really must have hit the board hard, where they thought, well, we've got this fancy new stadium, but there's nobody coming. We were knocked out of the domestic competitions very easily. We've been nowhere near the league. We're 33 points off the lead. I think that's a record gap for Wenger in his entire 22-year tenure. We're not in the Champions League unless we win the Europa, and I think it's going to be a big ask given we've got Atletico Madrid to play. Then we don't qualify again for that. We'll be back in the Europa again. These are... For Arsenal, and you get fans of the other clubs, you say, what the hell are you moaning about, Morgan? You've won 3 FA Cups in 14 years. What's the matter with you? Well, here's what I think the matter is. We aspire to be better than that. We aspire to be the club that we were told 4 or 5 years ago all the pain of the new stadium was going to make us be. Ivan Gazidis said we will be in there competing with everybody at the top elite of world football. And we haven't been. We're not even competing with the elite of the Premier League. So, in many ways, it's a good day for Arsenal, but it's a sad day for Arsenal. And I think that what I'm pleased about is that Wenger will now get a few home games. The atmosphere on Thursday will be absolutely rocking at the Emirates. It'll be completely packed, and everybody will be chanting one Arsene Wenger, because now it's been decided, and now we can give him a send-off that we've all wanted to give him, but for a few years we wanted to say, Arsene, goodbye and thank you. And his stubbornness and the board's stubbornness have led us to a point where it was a real danger of him going out on a very, very sour note. Now, happily, I think he can go out on a high, and it would be brilliant if he won the Europa to do that. I hope he does.
Will you be singing There's Only One Arsene Wenger on Sunday?
Yeah. Actually, you know what? I would. And however, contrary that may sound, given every time I've been on your show in the last few years, I've been howling for him to leave. The point is he's made the decision now. He's done the right thing. And now we can look back properly over his whole tenure at Arsenal. And no manager, like I said, has ever, I don't think, produced football in that first 8-9 years of the calibre that Arsene Wenger gave us. And he went toe-to-toe with Alex Ferguson and a brilliant Manchester United team, and he won the league 3 times against them.